This picture here can give you the idea that it's all sunshine and flowers. This is a 3-week-old female from the previous litter. We got past week 1 and we're in the clear, right? Please don't forget to subscribe to my page and like this video as I bring you more content about French Bulldogs and all the information you need to stay updated in the year 2024. What's up, guys? I'm Aaron with Frenchies, and I wanted to bring you a video today kind of updating you on where the litter is and where they came from. We went over week 1, which is the hardest week as far as making sure that you don't lose any puppies. And I want to kind of squeeze this video over weeks 2 through 6 to show you some of the changes that you'll see in your French Bulldogs, as well as tips and tricks on how to take care of them if things come up. So we went over a lot of things in the previous video that you can find the link in the top right corner here that you'll find in week 1 for the dogs. The main objective is to make sure the mom is cleaned up and she's recovering from the C-section and those puppies stay alive. So lots of work there. I'm not going to go over any of that in this video here as we transition into week 2. So some of the stuff you'll find in week 2 from the puppies is their eyes starting to open. You'll find that some dogs develop a little bit faster than others, but in that week 2 timeline, each dog should have their eyes fully open and they kind of awake to the world. I ended up having 2 in the litter, visual fluffies. So you won't know for sure during week 2 what's a visual fluffy and what's not, but it'll start to show. You'll see a little bit of silkiness in their fur that second week that's different than their brothers and sisters in the litter. So you can start to pay attention to that, and that's going to be important as we shift into week 3, and we'll go over that a little bit. If you haven't seen my video on how to save money on DNA tests, that's a big part of it as well. I'll also leave the link to that video in the top right corner here. The puppies will also start using the bathroom on their own, so you don't have to stimulate them as much, especially the latter half of that second week, to make sure that they're peeing and pooping the way that they need to. So that's also a plus that you'll see in week 2. But with that comes more cleanup. As the puppies start to kind of crawl around and open their eyes and wake up to the world, you're going to have a little bit more cleanup, but the mom and the puppies are still together. So it's not all on you. I've been fortunate that Lexi is a really, really good mom. So we thought we were in the clear on the cleanup, but 90% of it she did. We're just cleaning up after her and kind of changing out pads a couple of times a day. What you'll notice in your mom's diet, you cannot feed your dog the same amount of food. She is feeding 5 other puppies, 9 other puppies. I've seen as many as 13. You guys are really going to have to make sure that the food intake goes way up for the mom because she's producing a lot of milk, and you'll find that no matter how much you feed her, she's still going to look very, very skinny. The majority of her resources is going to be coming into producing the milk for the puppies to make sure that they're nourished properly. And then for me, we went over this as well, guys. You don't want to do business with people that don't have their paperwork together, that aren't organized. So I sent off the AKC paperwork and did it online week 2 for the puppies. And within 7 days, I got it back. So you should get the AKC paperwork taken care of during week 2. Send it off so when the puppies are ready to go home, no matter what kind of delays the AKC has, you don't make excuses to your clients and customers on why you don't have paperwork. Not acceptable. So shifting into week 3, that's the majority of the changes you'll see during week 2. Week 3, you should know 100% accurately if you have visual fluffies or not. You're not going to know if they're carriers or not. You're going to have to get a DNA test. But to differentiate those dogs that are full visual fluffy carriers, you're going to know by week 3. They'll look clearly different than the other dogs, and I'll show you guys some pictures of that here. You'll be able to tell so you can save that money. Going back to the how do you save money on the DNA video, that's a good way to do it. I don't have to get visual fluffies tested for visual fluffy because I know that they are. Your dogs will also be able to regulate their body temps. So you can kind of put up the incubator. I still used it a little bit when it came to cleanup because the cleanup became so much getting in there. It was way more than just changing out the pads at this point. You're getting in there with Lysol, cleaning the cage out, warm soap and water more than once or twice a day now to make sure you keep that area nice, clean, and sanitary. The mom is still in there with them cleaning up, but she needs help at this point. And what you'll notice is your dog is eating a lot of their number 2. So you want to kind of minimize that as much as possible as well, knowing that the mom is still going to be around. Her instincts is going to tell her, hey, eat it all up, keep it clean. They're actually really good at this, or at least my dog was, but I want to make sure that I get as much of that up myself without her having to do that. Also, DNA test this week. You know that you got visual fluffies. Again, we went over this in previous videos of mine about how to know what you're going to produce. If you understand DNA, you understand what you've created, especially when you have a 100% chance of things. So those aren't things you're going to test for. But for those that you don't know, that's what you're going to send in to get the DNA tested. So you want to get the DNA test done in week 3. So in 5 to 7 days, when you get those results back, now you have the full DNA profile. You've looked at the market. You might be building a customer base at this time, but you'll be able to price your dogs appropriately, making sure that you're promoting what DNA that you're giving out for each dog. And then also for me, something that I've never ever dealt with, and it may have something to do with those pads for the Easy Whelp system. The Easy Whelp system is fantastic. The pads that they have in there, though, are quite slippery. So I ended up with one puppy with swimmer syndrome. If you guys don't know what that is, essentially your dog will walk around. The other puppies at this point are walking around just fine. Their eyes are open. They're exploring things inside of their box. And you'll have this one puppy, in my case, it was the lilac tri-male, that essentially was getting around like a sea turtle. His arms are spread out to the side, in the front and the back, and he just can't quite get up. So making them slip on the Easy Whelp mats wasn't helping the case, so I ended up having to put a towel in there. That's going to be more cleanup in the end of the day, but you got to get that dog to recover. So what I did is actually quite simple. The best tape to use is actually electrical tape. I tried several different kinds. They don't stick. The dog is going to be highly annoyed by it, but you want to make sure you keep those legs together. You don't want that dog to develop bone structure around how his legs are. So you're going to tape those 2 legs back together above that joint there and keep them together. The dog is going to be super annoyed, but what it'll do is force that dog to use his back legs to get up and stand up. And I can tell you within 3 or 4 days, the dog was standing up and using those legs just like the other dogs, except for he had a waddle because his legs are tied together. So he's waddling those back legs, but he's building those muscles up. And after about 4 days, I was able to remove the tape, saw that he could walk like normal, but he was still kind of slipping. So we gave him a day to kind of recover from the tape, get used to things, and we put the tape back on him for about 2 more days. After those 2 days, the dog was fully developed like the other ones were as far as being able to walk like a normal dog. So you absolutely want to take care of this early. You won't know for sure because, again, each dog develops differently than the others. But when you identify this and you see it for several days and all the dogs are walking around and playing and this dog is still waddling around or crawling like a sea turtle, go ahead and tape those back legs together and make sure that you monitor the dog to ensure they're still eating, getting the proper nourishment. You don't want the dog away from the other ones and kind of getting rooted out by the other bigger dogs at this point, because they're going to be a little bit smaller because they just can't get around like the others and get to the food, and their mom is fast. So that is a success story from something that I didn't deal with, but within that week, we had resolved the issue and the dog was walking around like normal. So he looks like the other ones now as far as how he walks, and he's definitely caught up as much as how he eats. Week 4, again, you're going to get the DNA results back. So now you can promote the dogs with the correct DNA, knowing exactly what each dog has to help you plan future litters, find out which dog you're going to keep. And we can get into that in a future video. If you find yourself with this crazy structure, this really, really nice dog, and you know the DNA is something you want to build upon in the future, then which one do you keep? Do you keep a male or a female? So we'll go over that. There's benefits, there's pros and cons to each of them, whether you want to keep a female or a male, and we'll do that in a future video. So look forward to that. Again, subscribe to my page if you haven't already, and I'll bring that content to you as well. You'll also see the ears starting to stick up on each puppy as that cartilage in their ear kind of hardens. It should start sticking up. Again, each puppy is going to develop differently than the next one. In this week, for me, speaking for myself, a litter of 5, 3 of them had their ears sticking up. Now, towards the latter part of the week, I started to notice that one of them started to get a little harder and stick up, but got a little hang towards the top. So I'm keeping my eye on that. The full fluffy, big, beautiful Merle full fluffy male that I have is taking a little bit longer, and there may be something I have to do. If I get to week 6 or 7 and his ears still aren't sticking up like the others like they should, then I might have to interject and figure out a solution, similar to the swimmer syndrome, figuring out solutions so your dog develops properly. I didn't speak about this for week 2, but week 2 is a week where you're going to give your puppies their first dewormer. Be very careful when you do that. You're going to need an aspirator, as you can see in the video that I showed you earlier, because they're not going to know what to do with that their first time kind of getting that dewormer. much quicker than what they're used to getting from their mom's milk. So something you got to monitor and make sure that you aspirate them. And for me, I take the extra step. Week 2, they were getting breathing treatments, the whole 9 after everything, because I want to make sure that my puppies don't develop pneumonia and that they're free and clear to breathe the way that they should be breathing. So the second dewormer comes in week 4. You're going to do it every 2 weeks from week 2 on until the time that you rehome the puppy. And right now, we're not doing the tapeworm. The tapeworm will be the last one that we do at 8 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks. But they're getting treatment for all the other kinds of worms that they can have, roundworm, pinworms, things of that nature. And then again, we spoke about this, about the swimmer syndrome that was developed in one of my puppies in week 3. It was fully taken care of in week 4. So all of the dogs are running around playing the way that they should by week 4. And then here we are with the most important thing when you think you're in the clear during week 4. So yes, the puppies are cute. It's all good, but you cannot take for granted how much work the mom is doing during this entire time. So the mama is tired. She doesn't get the rest and sleep. You know, we're getting a few hours of sleep at night where we can sleep consecutively for maybe 3 hours at a time before we get up and check on the puppies. I can assure you mom is not getting that. So we usually walk in the room and see her completely passed out in a whelping box because she just can't stay up any longer. But this is the week to start feeding them mush. So the idea for feeding them mush is getting them used to eating the way that they should eat as dogs. And what we do is we mix high level kibble, and then we put a couple of other supplements on top, as well as raw meat. So we put raw food on top to make sure that the puppies are getting everything they should get. And we soak that in the milk. I'm going to leave a picture of that as well. And links are in descriptions for all these items that we're going over, guys. And you have to let it soak for about 30 to 45 minutes because that kibble can't be hard. Their teeth aren't developed yet. Although they might be getting some, most of what they're doing is gumming it. So you want to make sure that you leave that kibble in the milk for about 45 minutes. Let it get really soft. That's why they call it mush. It's going to be mushy. And you start feeding it to them. And this is when you separate the mom from the puppy. So at the end of week 4, mom is no longer taking care of the puppy. So guess who it's on? That's right, us. So that brings week 5. And I can tell you guys the one thing that you're going to notice about week 5 that you haven't quite experienced, even though you're on high alert, the level of cleanup that goes into week 5 is astronomical. Not only did you remove the mom from the puppies, but now you have puppies that are eating mush for the first time. So they're eating way more food and the mom is not around. The cleanup is ridiculous. You can no longer use the easy whelping box. We have a kennel system with a tray on the bottom, so everything kind of falls through because it's kind of the beginning of kennel training for them as well, to make sure you're getting some form of house training to the dog. So the cleanup is crazy. Remove them from the easy whelping box and get them in a kennel, preferably a kennel with a tray that drops down from the bottom. So if they pee or poop, it's dropping down and all you have to do is put disposable pads on top of the tray and then take the tray out, change the pad, and put it back in. It makes it easy once you get used to it, but we tried keeping them in the whelping box for another week, and that lasted a day and a half, and it was about 3 hours worth of cleanup, and I said this is unsustainable, and we switched them out. Their food intake is going to go way up. You're going to go from feeding them maybe a half a scoop a day of mush, and they're all going to eat it, and they can eat it throughout the day, to a full scoop to a scoop and a half. The dogs are going to be getting big very quickly, and make sure they're getting all the nourishment they need. I told you guys before in the previous video that they're audible when they're playing, but if they're whining, it's not because they're in the kennel, they want something. So pay attention to that. If the dogs are whining when they're awake, they're hungry, they want water, you're going to introduce them to water this week as well. Make sure you keep their bellies full. If they're not growling at each other because they're playing, they should be sleeping. And that's the other thing. They're really just going to be playing, eating, peeing and pooping, and sleeping. That's the only thing that these puppies do throughout the day. It's about 5 or 6 rounds of that. So you might be able to check on them every 3 hours and get away with it. But again, keep their area clean. It's a different kind of clean than when mom was around in the easy whelping box doing it. But you got to get your hands dirty a little bit and make sure you keep it clean and sanitary for them. All right, guys, I'm going to separate this video out and do week 6 to 8 as we get into rehoming the dogs. What are we pricing them for? How do we sell them? Maybe even going into some marketing strategies for that. But I'm going to get that all separate because at the end of week 5, week 6 is going to be the first time you deliver them shots. And I do that right at the beginning of the week. So they'll get their first shots and there's a 7 to 10 day incubation period. But after that, your puppy will be immune to some things that's really dangerous for them to be around. So once we do that, then we can start start introducing them to outside, socializing them with other animals, other dogs if you have them, other people, and possibly teaching them how to walk on a leash. So we'll go over that stuff in a future video, but I did want to get this information out there to you guys. Been super busy with this litter, and now Storm is back in heat again, so we have a breeding with her coming up next week. So we kind of got to keep this train rolling. So won't forget about you guys. I'll get that information out to you in the future. Again, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my page as I continue to bring you the most updated information with French Bulldogs in 2024. Thanks for watching.